And so when you are a Jehovah's Witness, you're actually taught that blood transfusions harm your chances of healing from surgery, that you actually get out of the hospital sooner if you don't have a blood transfusion. You think you have better medical care, Steve, by refusing blood.
I think this is where your work comes in here, Steve, because this is all about how to influence people without them realizing it. And it's taken place with the Jehovah's Witnesses over a very slow, steady period of time. For example, they didn't put the ban on blood transfusions until about, 1945.
Right.
Prior to that, the Jehovah's Witnesses were anti-vaxxers. They had bans on vaccines. But once they put the blood ban into effect, whereas Kimmy said you can't take any red blood cells, white cells, platelets, or plasma, once that went into effect, then they began the misinformation campaign with junk or pseudoscience, and that carried on 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, where it affected generations of Jehovah's Witnesses. And just as an example, they instilled unnatural fear of blood, so much so that they were teaching for a long time that the blood that you received into your body from a donor would reflect the personality traits of that donor. So they specifically said if that donor was a thief or a murderer, then you would inherit those personality traits. So it took decades, but they built up this incredibly unnatural fear. This was cult influence at its finest, or at its worst. But they built this fear into myself, my wife,
my father.
Kimmy's father was never even baptized as a witness, but he was taught these things in Bible study with the witnesses, and he had this incredible fear of what blood would do to him.
Yeah.
So he refused blood on 6 different occasions, for that fear. And because he thought that his personality would change and he may end up being a bad person. And so later, after we left, it took quite a bit of reasoning with my father to help him understand, that blood was not dangerous and that doctors weren't out to get him.